It's Nico from radio station 1055 Rock Festval. You've been there a few times, I've seen you. It's a cool city, Greece. My question concerns your set list. I read in a recent statement that you won't play Animal, Fuck Like a Beast due to your religious beliefs or thoughts. I wanted to know if this is true and what has made you turn into deciding this, and why your latest albums are more of a concept for with religion and stuff like that. You used to do such stuff in the past.
Well, you're wanting to do your own interview right now. I mean, that's a really lengthy question. I'll try to answer it short. I was born again when I was 11. And I went for a long time after that where I did my own thing. I went for 20 years. And I left the church. I went as far away as you could go. I studied the occult for 3 years. I practiced it. And I left the occult after 3 years because I realized that I had swapped one organized religion for another organized religion. And so I went for 20 years after that, and I thought I was mad at God. And I realized after a while, I was not mad at God, I was mad at man for the indoctrination that I had received. And so when I finally got over all the things that I had been taught as a kid, I started to seek my own answers. And when I started to seek my own answers, that's when I started returning to my faith. So the reason I stopped playing that song is I realized that a lot of times that you can say more with silence than you can by actually speaking. That's the reason for doing that. And as far as the rest of the records, I just think it's interesting subject matter. I mean, how long can you continue to sing about your girlfriend's red high heel shoes? You know, there has to be something of real substance after a while. You know, I was talking to Alice Cooper a couple of weeks ago about this very thing, and we were both talking about, because he too has returned to his faith, and we both agreed that if you go back and you look at even our early records, our records are laced with a whole concept of what we believe as kids. So we're basically just coming full circle. Good enough? You're welcome.
Great answer. Next question.
I represent Classic Rock Magazine Russian edition, and I would like to ask a question just like continues the topic of religion. What do you think about metal fans who idolize musicians like gods? Do you think it's like right or wrong?
You know, I wrote a song on the last album about that very thing. Yeah. And I'll tell you what happened is because we were over here last summer and we were doing the festivals, and while we were here, Michael Jackson died. And I've got a place where I live in California is not very far from his Neverland Ranch. And when we were here, I was watching TV, and on satellite I could see 1,000 people standing outside the gate. And I'm looking at it on TV, and it's so surreal to me because I know where this little spot is, and it's a very difficult place to get to. This is not some place you just go to, you just happen to be traveling by. You have to make a real effort to get here. It's in the middle of nowhere. And so when we got home, I had to go somewhere one day, and I drove by, because there's only one road where you can go in and out. And I drove by the ranch, and it's the first time I ever stopped. And I stopped and I looked at it for a second, and it was interesting because there was, first of all, there was nobody there. And when you look at the gates, one side says Neverland, and the other one says Once Upon a Time. And I stopped and I looked at the gates, and there was nobody there. It was just me and the birds. I mean, it was as peaceful and serene as it could be. And I thought to myself, 2 weeks ago, I'm halfway around the world watching 1,000 people standing here in front of these gates. What just happened here? How did this happen? And it's because of the idea, this is what happened when you put performers on a pedestal that they're not supposed to be on, because no human being can take that sort of adulation. It killed Elvis, it killed him, it killed Kurt Cobain, and a whole bunch of guys. No human being is designed to get that much adulation. So that's really what's sparked that song, because when you start putting human beings on that sort of a level, it's okay to admire them, but when you put a godlike worship on them, you are then putting them in a place that they can never live up to. And that's not a place where any human being should be.
Next. Okay, next question.
Come on, try a little harder.
Hi, this is Vesa, taking pictures from MTV3 Finland, and my question is, what do you think of YouTube? You have a concert tonight here and tomorrow it's on YouTube.
I think it's really, really good. When it first started, I think most bands might have been uncomfortable with the idea because they couldn't control it. But believe it or not, we all learned something from the Grateful Dead years ago. The Grateful Dead used to let bands come in and film and record whatever they wanted to do. And the idea of that sharing really increases the viewership. And you can build many, many more fans than you could have if you were controlling it yourself. So I think for me, I think it's a good idea.
Further questions?
What happened in Curitiba City, Brazil 2 months ago?
Oh, the equipment never showed up. Are you from there?
Yeah.
Okay, well you realize we were there, but the equipment wasn't there. So, you know, when the promoters promise you that the gear is going to be there, that's, you know, traveling 5,000 miles to do a show and then not do the show, it's very disappointing. You know, so hopefully we can go back at some time.
Hello, this is Sasha from Croatia.
Are you in the World Cup?
Unfortunately not this time. You once said, or I once read in some article, that you consider your tour with Iron Maiden 1986 one of the greatest tours in rock history. What makes you think that?
Well, I don't know if I said rock history, but I meant during the course of our career. But looking back on it, you know, you got to remember we were both managed by the same management company, so it was a real family environment, and both bands had known each other for quite some time. And it was a really, really great situation because both bands were still growing. And there would be times where, you know, we would get bored with each other in the band, and I'd stay with Steve Harris on his bus. And sometimes Nico would come over and stay with Chris Holmes, and it just, you know, it was a very incestuous relationship going on there. But it was great, and I mean, everywhere we were going, it just seemed like the audiences were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was really, I look back on it, it was one of the best times of my life.
One more question. I read in one of your interviews that you consider politics to be a kind of like art of compromises. And you have been around for many years in rock music.
Look at the president we just elected.
Yeah. But you have been around many years in the rock business, and I would like to know, like, are there any compromises for you in the rock music industry?
Well, that's the good thing about it. You don't have to compromise. You know, when my ego was the size of this room years ago, I thought I wanted to be a senator at one point. And when I realized that politics was truly that art of compromise, I thought, there's no way I can do this. I watch what those guys do on a day in and day out basis and think to myself, how can you go home at night and look at yourself in the mirror when you know that you are lying to millions of people? You know, and I don't want to stand before God one day and go, you know what, remember all that stuff you did to those people? Come on with me. You know, I don't want to be that.
Are you still in love machine?
What's that?
Are you still in love L-O-V-E machine?
You'd have to ask my wife about that.
Next one.
That's Noidi from Street Clip TV. You